A recent comment on my YouTube channel was asking which is better for self-defense, MMA or kickboxing. But I want to take it one step further and I want to talk about which is the best, MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, or boxing for self-defense, because I'm one of the few guys that I know of who has competed in kickboxing, loads and loads of fights, has actually competed in MMA, has had loads and loads of boxing training, and has gone to Thailand and trained Muay Thai for multiple months. I'm going to break down everything for you guys in today's episode. Now I want to start this episode off and say, if you're doing any of these four sports, you are well on your way to being able to defend yourself. And I want to let you guys know that Muay Thai, MMA, kickboxing, or boxing are all very good. We're not going to go wrong with any of these. However, there are other sports which I'm not including, other martial arts, which I've done before. They're not going to make it into this episode because I don't deem them as proficient at self-defense as these sports. Now you might go, yes, MMA, kickboxing, boxing, Muay Thai are all sports. They're not real. They're not like Krav Maga or other martial arts which are just really vicious. But the big thing that I have trouble with in things like Krav Maga or Aikido or these other ones is these guys have never been in a real fight unless you actually get into an altercation on the street. But you can train in the gym over and over. You know, block the shot, gouge the eyes, block the shot, gouge the eyes, block something, hit him in the throat. But you've never been in a real fight and you don't know how you're going to actually react. Whereas in all these other fight sports, MMA, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, you are actually getting in. You're actually facing somebody who's full on trying to knock you out, and you get to see if it actually works. And in my opinion, even though maybe this is not 100% the best self-defense in the world, these four fight sports are going to make you very good at defending yourself. The only thing we probably would need to add in is being a little bit more vicious. But overall, I think pretty much nobody's going to argue that, you know, a very, very high level boxer is not going to be able to defend himself. Yes, he absolutely is. Anybody want to go and pick a fight with Mike Tyson? Okay, he's big and scary. Anybody out there think they're going to do a really good job in a street fight against Manny Pacquiao? Probably not. So if you're doing any of these four sports already, you're in a fantastic place. But let's talk about which one, in my opinion, is going to be the best. And let's start this episode off with my forte, kickboxing. Now I have over 40 fights in the ring. I have fought so many of the best fighters in the world within the sport, and I've won all the belts behind me. Now, the first thing that is very, very fantastic about kickboxing is we have a lot of weapons to utilize. We're not just stuck with just hands. Now, in a recent episode where I was talking about Chael Sonnen kind of bashing kickboxing, he brought up a very valid point, saying that in kickboxing, we don't work enough head movement. We don't utilize head movement the way that you will in MMA or boxing. And I go, yes, that's 100% true. And because of that, and because of our style of defense, our guard, I would say, even though we're good at busting in the kicks, we're great at busting in the knees, the hands always look sharp, I would say of the four of them, this might be the least practical because it does not include all the striking elements and there's a lack of head movement. So in terms of which of the four are going to be the least beneficial for actual street fighting, I would actually say the one that I'm best at myself, kickboxing, would take that last place. Now we've already covered which one comes in fourth place. Let's move into what comes in number 3 place. And I want to move to boxing. I think boxing is a fantastic way to defend yourself. Like I already said, none of the fight sports we're talking about today are bad, mediocre, or even not great at self-defense. These are all fantastic. But boxing, yes, the head movement's better. And that's going to be important. When somebody starts swinging at you bare knuckle, you don't want to just stand there and shell up. So the guys who have good head movement are going to be able to see a shot come and go whoop and just move. Or roll under if necessary. And most likely get a good counter back. Just fade and fire back. But let's be real. Just like kickboxing, the boxers are not ready for takedowns. That's going to be a massive element of one of the weaknesses. And also, they don't have the ability to utilize their legs. Now, you don't have to be able to utilize your legs to defend yourself, but it's extra tools which can be very damaging. And I've done a video talking about self-defense and low kicks. And if you're standing here or here, wherever you are, and somebody's in your face, but you just want to take them out super quick and you don't want to get in and engage with punches, well, sure, you could just fire a low kick right down to their thigh, give them a dead leg, and hopefully just exit the situation. In boxing, because you don't work the low kicks, you don't have that technique, which is why even though the boxers are super dangerous, and a high-level boxer will most likely knock out anybody in a street fight he gets into an altercation with, they still don't have the complete package. So I'm going to put that at number 3. Moving down, I want to talk about Muay Thai. Muay Thai, in my opinion, is going to be very similar to kickboxing. One weakness of Muay Thai is their hands are not as sharp. They're definitely not like a boxer, still not like a kickboxer. They just lack a little bit of flow in their techniques. But in terms of self-defense, for single power shots, they have that. Plus, in addition, they have an amazing inside clench. So if for some reason you end up falling to the inside, somebody rushes towards you, you fall here, they're not only going to be able to most likely stay on their feet and balance, they're going to be able to ragdoll somebody around or bust out elbows. Somebody runs straight towards them with a big haymaker and they just step in, boom, and lift the elbow. That could be the end of everything. So to me, Muay Thai is just a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more well-rounded in terms of number of strikes that can be thrown. And I do feel like taking somebody down who's a Muay Thai fighter is not as easy as, say, a kickboxer. I felt like when I went to Thailand, my balance really increased. And yes, even though nobody's shooting in on the Muay Thai fighters and they're getting to practice their sprawling or something like that, they are still very balanced and they're not easy guys to take down. And I've noticed that even myself. When I transitioned into MMA, I was very, I'm not going to say proficient, but much more proficient than somebody who had never done any clench work. It's much easier to learn how to avoid takedowns and to fight in the pocket when you've done some solid Muay Thai clench. So Muay Thai, in my opinion, comes in at number 2, which leaves me in first place with MMA. If I had to say, what is one style that you're going to train and you're just looking for proficiency in being able to defend yourself, I would go, okay, MMA. Now, the thing about MMA is it's not really one sport. And that's the difficulty with it. We are taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing, we're putting it all together and seeing who's the best fighter in the world with really no set rules. Now the difficulty becomes, how do you get good enough at all of these to actually be able to use them in an actual situation? You might go in and one day of the week train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The next day you do some boxing. The next day you do some Muay Thai. You could do that for 2 or 3 years, and unfortunately, you're not probably going to be an expert at any of them, which means, yes, you might be able to defend yourself, but in my opinion, you're probably better off being really good at one thing. If somebody comes towards me and they're going to swing and my confidence in my boxing is like 50%, that's not great. If they go to shoot in on me and I know I'm going to end up on the ground and my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is only 50%, that's not probably very good. You're probably better off getting very good at one thing and being able to go, okay, this guy's coming towards me and I'm going to box my way out of this. As soon as he moves in, I'm going to give him a jab. I'm going to give him a jab. Then I'm going to step in and cross or something like that. So although MMA is the best, it's much more difficult to become very good at. So if you want to practice MMA and you're thinking in terms of, I want to be able to defend myself, I would say put like 70 or 80% focus into one thing in particular. Like I'm going to get really, really good at Muay Thai, and then on the side I'm going to work these other styles and I'm going to add that to my arsenal. And I suppose in a sense that's kind of like me. I mean, unfortunately I was not working Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling as I was in my kickboxing career. I just basically went, okay, I'm really good at kickboxing and I'm going to try and learn the groundwork and I'm going to try and add that in. And I did okay. I'm not an expert, but I have enough of an understanding that I feel like with my kickboxing as my self-defense, and then if somebody takes me down to the ground, I will have the ability to defend myself down there as well. And that is why when you see somebody who's very good at MMA, any of those guys who are in the UFC, at any position in self-defense, standing, wrestling, standing up, down on the ground, they're going to be a nightmare for anyone, which is why I put MMA at number 1. But as I said, it's very difficult to get good at all aspects of it unless you're somebody who's doing it for a living or has been doing it for a long time. So keep that in mind as well. And aside from that, guys, that is my take on which of these 4 fantastic martial arts will be the best in a self-defense scenario. But as I said, any of them are going to be great. We're not talking about doing some sort of Tai Chi or Aikido, which I've done and I respect them. But in terms of self-defense, they're not going to be as proficient as everything I listed out today. Guys, if you enjoyed the episode, please give it a like. If you haven't already, join the channel and get subscribed. Train hard, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.